Hi, so I hope you're actually doing well. This is going to be a continuation of what we learned last time. We're actually going to have an introduction to Python, whereby we would look at the basic Python syntax and get to learn a few more things as well. So, before we actually begin, in the previous video, we actually talked about editors and how to install them. However, there's one thing which I actually forgot to talk about as well. So, Apple or iOS computers actually come pre-installed with Python. So basically, you don't have to install Python on your computer if you have an Apple or iOS computer. But Windows or Linux computers do not come pre-installed with Python. So in this case, you'd actually have to install Python on your computer. So I'm going to put the link on the description because you'd actually have to install Python on top of installing the editors that we talked about last week if you have a Windows or Linux computer. So actually make sure that you have Python installed on your computer before actually continuing with this tutorial. Okay, so on to the next thing. So we actually already wrote our first Python program in the previous video, but feel free to actually do it again. So in this tutorial, we're going to be learning about Python 3, but there's actually two versions of Python. We have Python 2 and Python 3, but Python 3 is actually the most recent or the modern version that is most and widely used nowadays. So that is why we're actually going to be learning about Python 3. And then let's get into the print statement. So this is actually what we wrote in our previous video. This was our first program, but we need to know what does the print statement do. So what it does is that it actually helps to display the logs in your application. It also helps us when it comes to debugging any problems that you encounter in programming. So you don't have to worry about this as much. This is something which you would get to learn in future dates when you get more experience with programming. But a print statement actually really helps a lot when it comes to dealing with problems that you encounter in programming. So here's actually the syntax of how a print statement is written. Well, we actually wrote this last time, but feel free to actually go ahead and do this. So when it comes to writing a string, you must include either a single or a double quote. So let's say, hello, welcome to this tutorial. So this is actually a print statement. So let's go ahead and see what it does. So what the print statement does is that it actually prints this code here to the terminal screen. Okay, so and to the next thing, we're going to learn about comments. So comments are actually quite important when it comes to writing code. So what comments do is that they actually help people to understand the particular piece of code that has been written. So an example is that let's say I was writing my own code. It's actually quite important for me to write comments because in case someone else encounters my code and they actually want to know what it does, the comments would be the go-to thing. The comments are what would actually tell the person what the code that I have written is doing. So comments also really helps when it comes to improving the readability of the code. So as a good programmer, it's actually good that you get to practice to always write comments when it comes to writing your code. This is how comments are written in Python. For example, let's write a comment in regards to this print statement here. So this is a print statement. This is a print statement, sorry. So this is actually a comment which tells us that this here is a print statement. Okay. Another thing is indentation. This is actually another mandatory thing that you need to know about when it comes to Python programming, is that indentation is actually very, very, very important when it comes to writing Python code. So what does indentation do? It actually helps to make the code more readable and also well formatted, and it is mandatory, like I said, to follow the rules of indentation when it comes to Python. So here's an example. So the good thing about Visual Studio Code is that it would actually automatically indent your code. So that is why I actually also really love using Visual Studio Code. So here's an example. Let's say you are writing a function. So and then colon. So this here is the indentation. This here, like you would have a block of few spaces that you'd have to skip when it comes to writing your code. You're actually going to get to understand this line of code in future dates, so don't you worry. But I hope you've actually gotten the concept about indentation and how to go about it. And I hope you know that it's actually very important to apply indentation when it comes to writing code in future dates. So another thing, so we're going to learn about variables. So what are variables? Variable is anything that you can change. Basically, it's a way of referring to a memory location which is used by a computer program. So here's an example of how you could actually create a variable. So let me comment this out. So here's an example of how you could create a variable. Let's equate n to 5. So this is one way, this is a variable that we have created here, and then let's go ahead and print n. So that there is a variable that we have created. So let's go ahead and print. Yes, so our code has this print statement here, and we also have another print statement down here whereby we're printing out the variable up there. So I hope you've actually gotten a hang of what variables are. So we have types of variables. We have integers, which refers to numbers, and numbers in this case can be either positive or negative. They can be zero, but numbers in this case must not include a decimal point. So an integer does not include a decimal point. So an example, what you've written here is an integer. So if you actually want to check the type, let's actually go ahead and check the type of this variable here, variable n. So we can go ahead and see, we get that the type is integer. I hope you see that. So what you've written here, we get that the type is an integer. Okay, so let's go ahead. Floats. Floats refers to numbers with decimal points. So this is why I was up here. Integers do not include decimal points because floats are the ones which are used to refer to numbers with decimal points. So let's have a look. So let's change this to, let's say, 5.5, and let's get to find out the type. We get to see that the type is a float. I hope you're seeing that. We get to see that the type here is a float. Okay, so on to the next one, a boolean. Boolean refers to a value which is either true or false. So whenever you're writing a code and you find yourself using either true or false, that refers to a boolean value. So another example, let's go and see. So let's say we said n is equals to true, and then we want to check the type of n. Let's go ahead and check. You actually get to see that it is a type of boolean, bool. This bool here refers to boolean. So this true here refers to boolean. If we change it to false, we get to check again and see. You get to see that the type is boolean. Okay, on to the next one. So a string. What is a string? A string includes any information of characters or even integers. But what makes a string unique is that you have to represent it using single or double quotes. So let's go ahead and see. If we made us so this here is actually a string. Why? Because we have put single or double quotes in it. So let's say we made our variable and said let's say I can say my name, for example, and then I want to check the type again. As you can see, our code tells us the type is actually a string. So I hope you've actually gotten to learn what a string is. You've actually gotten to see what a float is, and you've actually gotten to see what an integer is as well. On to the next one. We have also a non-type value. This refers to when we do not have any value of the variable. So let's say we did this. When you do this, that means that our variable is of non-type. So let's go ahead and check again. Sorry, I'm gonna do that again. uh, so the class here is non-type, and then it's gonna print out none. When we print n, it's gonna print out none, and the class is non-type. So those are the types of variables that we have, and I hope that when you're actually presented with variables, you can be able to figure out which and which is what type of variable have you been presented with. So yeah, and that's it. We've basically learned about basic Python syntax as well as variables and types of variables. So thank you so much. I look forward to the next lesson, and I really hope that you have learned something from this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. So thank you so much and keep safe. Thank you.